Dear friends, hello and welcome today in an A400M heading to Estonia. I am participating in an international exercise in which we are going to have 2 planes dropping hundreds of paratroopers. The plane is magnificent, the training is incredible. All right, it's starting. Friends, we are with Colonel Francois. Hello, hello, you are the head of BOI, is that right? I am the operations chief of the GTI adenosine triphosphate, so this is a very important operation for you. There are a lot more people than usual. It's really something out of the ordinary.
This is the exercise we are used to doing, TAP maneuvers like this, with almost the volume of a regiment that will be engaged. This maneuver is unprecedented, as we will jump 3,000 kilometers from the home port with an exercise conducted behind. There are several interests in this maneuver. The first is to work on interoperability also with the French forces that are pre-deployed in Estonia and in the Baltic countries. And also interoperability with the Estonian comrades we are going to join, since the GTI ATAP, the parachute battalion, will be under the orders of the 1st Estonian Division for about 10 days. And there, when you jump, you land. I see that you jump directly with your weapons. As soon as we jump, we start the exercise. Parachutists must be ready for action immediately after jumping from the plane. The parachutists behind will exit the plane, land, gear up, and begin the exercise. And during the process, a deployed French unit will pick us up. We then begin the exercise with our Estonian colleagues.
Let's return to our discussion about Estonia. We are on an exercise there.
Franco-Estonian, or is it a broader framework? No, it's a much broader framework, since the PIKNE exercise is part of other exercises that will take place in parallel, and with a certain number of nations ranging from Finland to Lithuania to Estonia to our English comrades and to us, the French army. How many jumps do you make per year? About 10 jumps per year. It's kind of the contract that the army sets for itself to be able to do this kind of exercise. So today it will be one more jump.
What do I need to do to become a paratrooper? Because I have...
You need to train physically for this demanding job. When asked, they decline to assist. You are perfect. There you see that the packages and sheets that are with the paratroopers, they weigh about 50 kilos. The paratrooper will weigh between 150 and 200 kilos when jumping out of the plane. Imagine arriving on the ground. You have to run, pull out your weapon, and fight right away. So it's an exercise that is intense for the body. Ultimately, you must have the desire to be a paratrooper. You go through the selections, then come to us for training and education. And then a few months later, you are here participating in an exercise. The paratrooper units, as well as even the army units, they are deployed all over the world. So they are somewhat used to going from Guyana to Africa, to Djibouti, to New Caledonia, and then to Europe. I wouldn't say we're used to having minus 15. But we know how to face it anyway. It's cold at altitude. It's very cold, thank you to...
What kind of operation are you doing?
When we are on the ground, we have all the leisure to put on the parachute.
Change the settings if things aren't right.
So there are 2 parachutes. There is a dorsal one before the PAL.
A dorsal sail before the PAL, which is the main sail. The ventral sail serves as a backup sail.
Here it's an automatic opening one.
Opening.
At what altitude do planes fly?
We're at 300, 400 meters. It's high, it's low for now, it's planned 400 meters. Generally no, on training jumps we're at 300 meters. These are normal heights, by the way, and...
In operation it's lower, it can be. Thank you, I've just been told. They're not very optimistic about the weather. Apparently the ceiling is too low. In operation, of course, they would descend below the ceiling. In any case, we do the exercise, we prepare the mission as if they were going to jump. If they jump so much the better. Otherwise, we will land, and they will do their ground exercise once they have landed, normally with the plane. You know, friends, we took off, a lot of things happened. First of all, from my point of view, it's a particularly quiet plane, even if it doesn't necessarily give that impression right now. There is still significantly less noise compared to older aircraft. Especially me, who flew on a Tantric 2, it's the engine of the Transal, it was really much noisier. In terms of power, we have a takeoff with a climb rate, a climb angle that will go up to 15, 20 degrees, and we really took off in 15 seconds. It was really super fast. They settled in. First there was almost 2 hours of break, so they were able to sleep, relatively comfortable. I tested the seats. There is nothing to say. Here we are about 2 hours before the drop. They started their preparation procedure. They strapped themselves on board the aircraft, whereas if they were going to do closer exercises, they would arrive on the plane already fully equipped. So now they are getting equipped on board? There are then verification procedures, and each individual will be checked by an inspector, who will ensure that everything is properly harnessed, correctly folded, etc. Colonel, are you well settled now that we've been going for about 2.5 hours? It's more restful at the beginning, then we get equipped on board. Why not get equipped before we
take off? Because we have a flight that lasts more than 4 hours. So now we are 2 hours from the drop. So we just started equipping, and then the verification of the parachutists. It should be finished in about an hour. And then we will have an hour before the drop. That is to say,
once we board, we do all the safety checks. It takes each person individually, which is why it's time-consuming.
the jump masters, also known as droppers, are responsible for checking each parachutist to ensure their harnesses and straps are secure before the jump. That's why it takes almost an hour. There. They are all at the end. That's it over there. It's them. Yes, exactly. They have already made the first pass and the second pass. They are going to attack the third and the fourth. So the row that you have in the center. There. You are anxious. You want to jump. What are the feelings? There is apprehension that fades as the experience progresses. There we have a troop that is quite seasoned, so there is a bit of experience. Above all, we can't wait to get out since, as you mentioned, we've been in the plane for 4 hours. Almost 4 hours we've been in the plane. So now I think everyone is thinking about getting out of the plane as quickly as possible. And the work he must do once he arrives. And does the colonel have the same equipment as the rest of the men? The colonel, he has exactly the same equipment as the others. In the plane, we are all the same. What are the procedures once we are under our canopy? It's the verification of the canopy's flight to know if everything is okay, if everything is in the right place, if nothing is torn at the level of the dome. Next, it's about preparing for landing, as a flight like this goes quite quickly. It takes about 20 seconds and then we're on the ground. So, you have to get into position, release your line so it touches the ground before the parachutist does. After that, focus on the next steps. Reorganizing, collecting gear, readying your weapon, forming up, and moving to the rally point. When you say drop the line, it's the big bag that's there to prevent it from hitting your knees. You let it fall below us. Is that it? Yes, exactly. You will see the parachutists who will stand up, who will be a bit handicapped with this big line, and then once they are out, they will open their parachute, and at a certain height, they will drop the line with the strap that you see here, the little red handle. Once they reach about 50 meters, they will drop the line so that it hits the ground first. How is the belly parachute triggered? The belly parachute usually does not deploy. The idea is that it does not trigger. We had a whole bunch of procedures that were announced before the jump. If ever we are hooked with another parachutist, or if ever the flight does not go as it should, at that moment there are conforming cannons that make us open the parachute, and at that moment we pull on this little red handle that is here, and we have a dome that is roughly equivalent to the dorsal dome that opens and allows the parachutist to arrive safely on the ground. And why didn't you accept that I jump with you? Because I need to train, you need to get the certificate, but come to Carcassonne, we will teach you, and next time you will go out with us with great pleasure, we will do that.
How many buckets do you already have? This is my 6th this year and my 12th in total. The big bag is my military gear, containing my sheath with enough supplies to survive for about 72 hours. I have my transmission equipment, my bedding, my food, and the wood. And the combat gear, yes. And the weapon, it's only a handgun. I have my handgun, my assault rifle, which is on my big bag in the case that's here. So now we're jumping to what, 300, 400 meters? Today we're jumping to 400 meters. 400 meters, I'm jumping to 300 meters. And when we jump to 438.9 yards, what are the immediate operations? What do? We jump, we count. In 3 seconds. Then the sail unfolds. Immediately we check our sail to see if it has any flaws. If it doesn't have any burns, tears, if it's in a loss, then we
are going to look
at our suspensions.
if there are no defects, and the windows are also in the green. Afterwards, we'll take a look around to see if we're not too close to a comrade.
If ever we are...
Too close, we're going to distance ourselves a bit from him by orienting ourselves. We're going to look at the area where we are, orient ourselves according to the wind, have the wind at our back, and then take a good landing position, and everything really goes well. And how long does it last? At 400 meters, it lasts a little less than 3 minutes. Well, Colonel, what's the point of a paratrooper? Why do we carry out airborne operations?
A paratrooper is a tool in the hand of the army to be able to initially project power, project units beyond the front line, to be able to surprise the enemy and carry out actions that can be either the capture, the destruction of priority objectives, important objectives for the enemy like a divisional HQ, a brigade HQ, or artillery batteries, something that is important for the enemy's maneuver. It can also be a thorn in the enemy's side, that is to say, to seize a city. To seize a point, something, well, without talking about an important point, tactically important. And be able to bother the enemy on his rear and force him to divert part of his forces on his paratrooper forces who have the ability to hold the ground, to cling to the ground, rather rugged terrains, essentially cities. So the doctrine has remained the same as in World War II. The idea is exactly the same. We have processes that come from World War II. Then we have things that have evolved. Some processes, some equipment too. The liaison capacity, which in World War II was more complicated. Today we have innovations. We have mule robots. We have satellite. We have things like that. So it fluidifies the maneuver. It improves the maneuver. And it makes the maneuver even more effective on the destructions we have caused on the enemy.
"218 yards out, cancel the drop and adjust for a barrel." I repeat, drop cancelled, tailoring on a barrel, 218 yards of beach.
Sit back in your seats, 20 minutes of flight, and grab the cables.
Hello, my captain, flight commander. I am the flight commander at Casterheim within the 461 Squadron of Harness since 2021. It's a device that clearly succeeds the Transalp. How much payload do we have on this type of device? We can show up to 37 tons of payload. Today we have 37 tons of parachutists at the back. Yes, we are lighter today. We are at 14 tons. But you saw the hold, it's full. We are often more limited in volume. We can accommodate up to 116 people up there. 116 paratroopers, but slightly fewer. Absolutely. What is the particularity? The evolution, obviously the transaxle. It's an older plane. It's also a generational leap in piloting. In piloting, because the 400M, it's an electric command. And then the engines, which are overpowered, there are more than 11,000 horsepower per engine. For the same engine, we have 44,000 horsepower. Whereas for comparison, the Transat, it was at 5,600 horsepower. On one engine, we have the equivalent of an 11th Transat. Yes.
So it's something that
Is absolutely gigantic. Before us lies an object closely resembling what we observe in small aircraft. The 400M's cockpit is identical to the 400M3's. Okay, do you have video feedback on what's happening in the back? Yes, I can display the 3 cameras.
one at the front,
The assembly, one at the back and
one on the front.
Well, we'll meet after the flight, with pleasure. Come on, first we land.
200, 150, 100.
$70, $50, $40, $30, $10, $5.
Let's go! Friends, one last little detail. Over there is the cockpit, over there is the hold. But this is the exit. It's one of the emergency exits. This one is the one we use in case of a water landing. We come out on top, obviously. And then obviously there are standard exits in the cockpit if necessary with ropes, but that's basic, like for all the planes on the island. Well, friends, as you've understood, the weather wasn't good enough. The ceiling wasn't at the right height. And so we landed at the Russian airport. They are deploying. They will arrive on the field and they will do days and days of exercise. Now, in the cold of the snow, it's the strong ones, it's the paratroopers. Let's find the commanding officer now.
Hello, Colonel. Hello. Hello, we landed in Mari. So in the tactical context, it remains coherent and credible since we are reinforcing our Estonian allies. We are going to deploy as planned in defense to allow the 2nd Estonian echelon to articulate, to prepare to launch an offensive. And then in a second step, we will carry out an offensive maneuver alongside them in an inter-allied framework. It's quite interesting because there are not only Estonians, but also British and Lithuanians. We will have a part of them under our command. And we ourselves are placed under the command of the Estonians. It's an intriguing inter-allied and inter-armed maneuver with the Air and Space Army participating. And then it is part of a triad of exercises with exercises that have been carried out beforehand. Exercises at sea, exercises on land with the dynamic front exercise that has just been carried out and which consisted of an artillery fire maneuver. The largest artillery maneuver in NATO history, if I understood correctly. Probably in any case, what is certain is that these are exercises that are particularly interesting for us. We need to challenge ourselves, to test ourselves on exercises like this one with our allies.
Have the methods and tactics used here evolved over the past 3 years, or could this mission have taken place a few years ago?
So the tactic itself is constantly evolving. We learn from all the operations we conduct, that we conduct, but also those conducted by others. So this was the case with Ukraine, but it was also the case with what happened in Khartoum, for example. This was the case with what happened in Lebanon and Gaza. We constantly draw from everything that happens to evolve our techniques and procedures. Because it is these techniques and procedures that, by modernizing, potentially allow us to reverse the trend and regain ascendancy over a particular area. And to always be ready, and to always be ready. Thank you very much. You're welcome. A big thank you. Thank you.
Come on, friends, I hope this video has you.
Pleased. Come on.
2 more guys.
Come on.
Let's meet below. They are getting ready. They are ready to go fight now. See you soon for new adventures. Now, I'm boarding a ship of the National Navy. We need to monitor the area because apparently there are real hostiles trying to overrun.